This is how I shot an indie feature film in 9 days for $150,000. The hook. So we had 9 days to shoot what realistically should have taken about 18. The budget was $125,000. Yes, I went over. And so by the end, with SAG deposits and hidden costs and the real cash flow, it was $150,000 plus, just a little bit more. I was producing, co-directing, acting, rewriting on the fly, and I barely slept. At one point, I thought the film was dead before it even started. But somehow, we pulled it off. And this is the story of how I made my first feature film, All Hail Anastasia, in 9 days, with no sleep and no safety net. If you're a filmmaker or just love stories about impossible projects, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now, because I'm going to share my filmmaking scars and pass on lessons that last. Now let's get into it. Setting the stage. I didn't go to film school. Instead, I decided to dive into the deep end and make my own feature film and let that be my school. Because film school at NYU or USC can cost $200,000, $300,000 for a little degree, a piece of paper. And I made All Hail Anastasia for $150,000, all in when you include all the SAG-AFTRA deposits and payroll fees and all the fun stuff. And in return, I got the hardest and most valuable crash course of my life, something that they will not teach and cannot teach in school. Well, as well as that, I got a piece of IP, a tangible asset, a resume builder, and a potential to make all my money back. And that's why most filmmakers suggest letting the camera be your school. And that's what I did. However, we did decide to film in the middle of the SAG-AFTRA strike, if you remember that, which was a horrible idea, and we had to apply for an interim agreement just to be able to use union actors, and that paperwork nearly derailed the whole entire thing before we even got started. It was miserable. We got approved, but about 7 days before our shoot dates, and that pushed us up against the wall, and from the very start, it set the tone. This wasn't going to be smooth, and every step forward felt like a gamble. The lesson is, the best education isn't in the classroom. It's on set, where every mistake costs you real money, and you have no choice but to learn. So invest in yourself, filmmakers. That is how you're going to learn the most. The impossible challenge. $150,000 might sound like a lot, but in the film world, it's nothing. Our budget had to cover payroll, insurance, gear, food, locations, permits, trailers, and post-production. And that's before you even get to the fun stuff. To put it in perspective, most indie features shoot in 18 to 60 days. Studio films take 60 to 360 days, and we had 9. And on a SAG restriction of only 12 hours a day, or you're paying overtime, that meant shooting an average of 9 pages. And for anyone who doesn't know, 2 to 3 pages is comfortable. 5 is a hustle. 9 is bloody survival mode. And I wasn't just directing, I was acting, I was producing, I was rewriting lines late at night, every night. And then I was back up at dawn, solving problems, production problems. It wasn't filmmaking, it was literally like sprinting a marathon. So the lesson is, before you make a film, do the math. Page count per day is the #1 metric that tells you if your schedule is realistic or not. Don't do what I did. Do not schedule under 10 days. That's crazy. The chaos. Day 2 of filming, everything nearly collapsed. One of our actresses tested positive for COVID, and she was scheduled to play my wife, a role that anchored all of the family drama, really. And so without her, there was no film. We had already taken promo photos and marketing photos, EPK stuff, and so losing her would have killed the movie. And that night, I thought it was over, to be honest. But then came a miracle. We found a replacement actress last minute who stepped in with almost no prep time. It was incredible. And I was terrified she wasn't going to be ready, but she delivered one of the most grounding performances in the whole entire film. She saved the production. So the lesson is, always have a backup plan for casting. Actors get sick, schedules change, losing one role can collapse your entire film. So make sure you have a plan B. Okay, cut. Look, everybody loves to talk about making indie films for cheap, but nobody ever shows you the real numbers. So I'm doing it. I just dropped the full case study for my feature film, All Hail Anastasia. It's line by line, what I spent, where it went, and what nearly killed the budget. So if you're serious about making a feature film, or you just want to see what $150,000 really buys you on screen, then grab the case study now. Download it, study it, and feel free to ask me any questions. I made so many mistakes, so hopefully you can learn from this blueprint. Look, this blueprint is something that I wish I had when I started, because there are so many sunk costs or forgotten costs or hiding or secret costs about making films that you don't know are there unless you start and do the research. Well, this is part of the research. Download the case study now and go into your film knowing everything that you need to know. The budget, pressure cooker. This is where the money lessons hit. We had to pay $17,250 up front for a SAG deposit, which I didn't know about. And that money sat in their account for months. Rapbook payroll added another 20 to 25% overhead in fringes and workers' comp. And we had to pay a key crew for prep days, like first AD or building the schedule and location scouting, those sorts of things. And those out-of-pocket days don't show up in the clean budgets, but without them, we would have been lost. And so you have to pay. Every decision felt like a life or death decision. And do I pay for better catering to keep the morale high for the crew, or do I save that money for post? Do I rent another lens? Do I keep it aside in case we need emergency money or insurance coverage? You know, with such a tight budget, you're not making creative choices at that point. You're making survival choices as a producer. You know, every day I saw the budget rising and rising and rising with more expenses. And I didn't know if I could afford it, but we were too deep in to stop. And when you're filming the film on your own budget and you're producing it yourself and you know how much you're writing on it, every little thing counts. And so you've got to be so stringent while also making sure that the team and the morale is upkept and you're getting all the things that you need to create a beautiful film. And so it really is it's a hard catch. You've got to figure out exactly where your budget lies. So the lesson is, budget honestly. Payroll fees, deposits, prep days, and kit rentals will eat more than you expect. Do your research, please. Gear lessons. Equipment was another wake-up call, to be honest. We didn't rent from a house because that was extortionate, and we used crew-owned kits. And that's how we got our camera package for $1,500 instead of $10,000. A DP kit with lights and stands and whatnot for $400, a grip and lighting kit for another $200, and the best money I spent was a $200 cash to my key grip for his Lupo super panel, which was incredible. It was the one light that saved all of our outdoor shots. I absolutely recommend it. You know, on top of that, I had nearly $2,500 on SanDisk storage devices just to back up the footage safely. It's invisible costs that without them, you don't have a film, and you've got to think about it. The lesson is borrow gear, buy storage, and always ensure replacement values, even if they're crew-owned kits, because at any time, someone or something could happen, a camera, a light can get broken, and all of a sudden, if you don't have insurance, you're paying an outright cost, and that outright cost is, 10x what you're renting it for. So please make sure you get insurance, because you could be stuffed, paying the bill for something that you weren't expecting. The payoff. There were nights I thought we'd never finish. We fell behind schedule, scenes ran too long, I was wearing too many hats, but then came the garage scene. The Johnson family together was incredible. Watching those actors, feeling the raw emotion in that room, that was the moment the chaos melted away, and I realized the film had a soul. And that's when I learned about filmmaking. It's not about the perfect shot list or budget math. It's about creating space for actors to bring the story alive. That's where the magic happens. And so my biggest lesson was, when everything else fails, trust your actors. That's where the creativity lies. Once you get them in that room and it all goes silent or loud, depending on the scene, let them work. Let your hands be done with it, and let the creativity flow. The wrap up. In the end, we did it, obviously. We wrapped in 9 days, the movie was finished, but the real value wasn't just having a feature film, it was everything I learned along the way. Here are the 5 lessons I'd give any new filmmaker. Number 1, don't wear every hat. It will burn you out. Lean on experienced people who have brought a film to life before. People you can trust. Number 2, love your failures. They are your real film school. Smile at every stumble and write it down. Number 3, budget honestly. Payroll deposits, food, gear, and insurance eat most of your money. Do your research. Know more than you should before you have to. Number 4, always plan contingencies. Actors, gears, schedules, they will fail you. Have backup plans for everything. And finally, number 5, take care of your crew. Morale is worth more than money, and the crew will set the energy and the tone for every single day. So make sure you take care of them. That $150,000 wasn't just a film. It was tuition for the hardest crash course of my life. And now I know how to do it better. All those failures became the film, All Hail Anastasia. It's raw, it's emotional, and it nearly broke me. It pretty much did break me, but it's finished. And you can watch the full movie for free right here on my channel. So if you got something out of this story, then hit that subscribe button. I'm sharing everything I've learned along the way making this film, so you don't have to make the same mistakes. And you can go into your film eyes wide open with the lights on and ready to go. So go watch All Hail Anastasia right now, and then come back here because the next story might save you months or thousands of dollars and stress on your own project. But good luck.